So I smiled when I heard Ian speaking just now because a lot of the points that he raised actually had me reflecting. And so my task here is to talk about how HR professionals can foster and support greater employee engagement and productivity in this era of increasing digital work. And in preparing for this presentation, I thought of going back to the Gallup study to look at where things are in terms of the reported employee engagement. And what I found was that the report suggests that 15% of employees across the world are engaged. And I questioned myself what happened or what's happening to the other percentage. The report went on to say that 35% of employees in the US are engaged. And I also questioned, I looked a little bit more at my own country, and we have an entity called the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, the JBDC, that puts out annual survey or reports about employee engagement. In fact, there is an annual conference on employee engagement that happens every year. And the JBDC is actually reporting that 1 in 4 Jamaicans are engaged. And Jamaica is one of the lowest in the Caribbean region in terms of productivity. And as my research knowledge would actually tell me or inform, there is a positive correlation between employee engagement and productivity. So both work in the same direction. So when employee engagement increases, then ultimately all being with other factors impacting productivity would also increase. And looking through these research reports, I've had to question myself as an HR professional and also think about our own profession in terms of what do we need to do in this era to enhance or to improve these numbers in terms of employee engagement, and also to question what have we not been doing right. And so again, Ian's presentation really made a lot of things jump out on me, because for me, I think this whole idea of or construct of employee engagement, there's no silver bullet. There's no one size fits all. In a number of instances, it is contextual. And in this environment that we're existing in with this pandemic, it makes it even greater for us to reflect on what exactly do we do. So in thinking through this presentation, I thought of the fact that as HR practitioners, we have to start to think about how we help people and help people to understand that though the whole idea of employee engagement is really looking at workers, employees, how involved they are, how enthusiastic they are about their work, how empowered they are, how committed they are to their work and their workplaces. It starts with us. There are persons who are intrinsically motivated and they will do things and not think about how others perceive them, how others recognize them. And there are others who will want to hear that I'm doing a good job, would want to be rewarded. And it doesn't have to be financial rewards. We'll want those communication, we'll want those relationships. And so the question on the table is, how do we as HR professionals help in this regard? How do we find ourselves at the table, that C-suite table? How do we contribute? How do we make that bridge between that C-suite leadership and just about anybody within the organization? And so in further reflection, I have had to think that relationships do matter. The relationships that we form with every single person in our organization, and by extension, our stakeholders, do matter in this process of employee engagement. I also think our emotions do matter, and Ian touched on it just now in terms of, how it is that we're going to manage our emotions. And I would want to strengthen that in terms of how it is that us as HR practitioners must manage our emotions, must regulate our emotions, and then to help others to manage and regulate those emotions. Again, in this dispensation that we're existing in the pandemic, there are persons now who are struggling working from home, really just trying to maneuver the technologies, understanding what it means to work from home. Are my outputs as good enough? Am I being recognized for the efforts that I'm making, that I'm putting out? And so I think we have that responsibility to help our supervisors, or managers, or leaders, our staff to understand how to navigate this current situation, to have people understand that they are empowered to do some of the things that they need to do. There are persons who have yet shifted their mindset from, how it is that we are going to measure work in this dispensation. And so a thought and a message that I also have is that we have to change the way that we think about performance and assessment. And so we've always stuck in this mode of thinking about performance management. And at intervals, we may evaluate and give feedback in probably a very structured and stuff way. But I think we're going to have to change that dispensation and think how it is that we give on the spot, on demand feedback to people, have them understand what they are doing right and how it is that they can improve in what they are not doing as right. We're going to have to express a lot of gratitude. And it's one of the things that I see, we don't do all the time. Express gratitude. And it may be simple gratitude for the effort people are making in this time. And things like these, I think, will help people to understand that they are valued for an organization. Their work and work is valued. So for me in my organization, I've started to think through from the very early onset in terms of talent acquisition. So when I do interviews, for example, what type of interviews do I do? And I find myself looking at doing interviews in terms of values-based interviews and also employee engagement interviews. So I ask people questions, for example, what are some of the things that motivate you in an organization? What are some of the things that you would like to see from leadership? What are some of the things that you'd like to see from your colleagues? And so those things give me a sense of how do I prepare for this employee who we're taking on? How do we onboard this employee? How do we continue to see the development of this employee throughout this employee's work life? Ian spoke about development, and I'm also big on development because that too is going to help us to engage and continue to re-engage the employees in this dispensation. Thinking through about engaging younger persons with talents that we need in the organization, I think is also going to be very important, because what it says, it sends a message that we care about people, we believe in people, we value the contributions, we want to empower people. Trust is going to also be an important ingredient. And so it's not only about saying, but I think it's about doing as well, because some of the times our words do not correlate with the things that we do. And so my charge, or my what I'm throwing out today is, even as leaders and just managers in our organizations, we have to think about walking the walk and talking the talk. So the two things can't be different. The things that we do have to be incongruent, has to be congruent with the things that we say. And so at this time, I want to stop here to hand over to